We have our pump completely disassembled now. We're going to take a minute to inspect the hard parts for damage and wear. Important part here is in the bell housing. You see we have a nice smooth surface here. If there's any galling or wear, it'd probably be a good idea to replace the bell housing. Now we come over to our pump body. We're going to remove the pump gears to inspect the pump housing. Okay, this set of gears has a set of marks that face down into the pump pocket. Okay, we're going to look at the pump pocket. We're going to check the inside for wear and galling. We're going to check the crescent for wear, where the teeth might have hit the crescent. And we're going to check the bearing here for galling and the scarring of the rollers. Of course, we want to take the old O-ring and throw that away. And we'll also want to install a new front seal. Now we go back together with this pump. We're going to put our outside gear in, inside gear, drive gear. Right here I've got a 2.5 thousandths feeler gauge. We want to check for wear in between the pocket. Now, this is a new pump, so this 2.5 thousandths gauge fits just perfect right in there. As a matter of fact, I can almost, it gets a little jammed because the gears are brand new. That side clearance, 2.5, you see that as the minimum, to 3.5 would be the maximum. Now we're going to take a straight edge and place it over the pump pocket. What we're looking for here is we're going to use our same feeler gauge, and this is, there again, this is a brand new pump, so there's literally zero tolerance through here. There's probably a 0.5 thousandths, maybe. This is an excellent way to check for wear for a pump body. So we have our gears back in. We can lube up with a little assembly lube, lube up the pocket before we put it together. And of course, we want to use a new O-ring before we put the pump back together. Now our pump body's ready to be assembled. We've got all our parts cleaned up. We're ready to assemble the stator and pump together. We've got our gears lubed up, our O-rings lubed up, so we're just going to take this and push it right in to the bell housing. We're going to use a new coated gasket. Place it down on the bell housing there. Now we're going to take our stator. You see we have an alignment stud right here. That's going to align to this hole right here. Can't get this off any which way. It'll really be difficult. It only goes in one way. Okay, so got that all lined up. Now, we're going to be smacking on this to get it to mate down on here. A good tech tip for you guys is to take a couple of pump bolts, a couple of stator to bell housing bolts, and just put them in here. We're going to go just hand tight. Okay, we put a little pressure on that one. Little pressure, and this will keep the pump mated to the bell housing so that it doesn't go flying out when we tap this down on here. Okay, that's seated down on here. Now we can finish bringing that up. Just hand tight. There. Now we can remove the studs. Set those aside and install the rest of our stator to bell housing bolts. Now I'm going to run these down with my gun here, and now that we've got all these bolts down, and secured into the bell housing. We want to torque these bolts to 14.75 foot-pounds. Okay, a couple of other things before we get to the B1 clutch installation are the K1 sealing rings and bearing that we want to, well, first we want to change the sealing rings and we want to inspect the bearings. The bearing here on the stator, we want to make sure that it rotates freely and smoothly and there aren't any rough spots that we can feel. If it's rough or not even, we want to pull it even farther apart and inspect it and probably replace it. So we have our new sealing rings here. We want to take our clutch drum, our K1 clutch drum, and make sure that these rings fit real nice and snug in the groove. Now, get those set in there. There we go. And that's a real nice fit right there. I'm going to put these on the stator. Now these are tongue and groove sealing rings. They're plastic sealing rings. They're not Teflon. Okay, got a good look at those sealing rings. Now we're going to put them down into the groove. This one will go down in the first groove down in. There we go. And the second one, let's try that one in the bore as well. Make sure that fits in there. A little tricky because they're real flimsy. Perfect, perfect, right there. Looks good. Okay, so we're going to take that tongue and groove sealing ring, put it down in the top groove. Now we've got both sealing rings replaced correctly for our K1 drum. And now we're ready to assemble the rest of the B1 clutch. We're going to put together the B1 clutch right now. And as you can see, this is a molded piston. We want to be sure and put the highest quality molded piston that you can find in here. This is very critical that the fit and finish is at the top of your list of things that we want to have the best, right? So we're going to just push that down, lube it up, push it down in there. That's real simple. We've got our Belleville spring, B1 piston return spring. Now, this is our L-shaped return spring retaining snap ring that we're going to work this down in here. Now, there isn't a lot of pressure on this spring, so we can just start it with our straight bladed screwdriver into the groove. Now, we're going to work it around to get it into the groove all the way around here, pushing down and using a twisting motion to get it to stay in the groove here. Come on, there we go. Might even give it a little tap. There it goes, right in there. Working it, you can hear it. You can hear it snapping into place. And just the last little edge. And you might take a second to walk it around just in between the piston and the housing to make sure that that's seated into the groove. All done. Now we're going to take our B1 cushion spring. This is a dished washer. It angles in this way, down this way. So you want to put the dish down. And then we're going to take our B1 clutches. Now, these are brand new clutches and we've soaked them. You want to always be sure to soak your clutches for at least 10 minutes in automatic transmission fluid. So we're going to put the clutches down into the drum. install our pressure plate. Finally, our snap ring. Down in there. Now you can see we've got a bit of clearance there. Our snap ring's been installed, and now we've got a bit of clutch clearance to measure. We want to take our feeler gauge and stick it in between the pressure plate and the snap ring. The clutch clearance, depending on clutch count, should be anywhere from 2 millimeters to 2.7 millimeters. And this is adjustable by a different thickness snap ring. Well, we've assembled our pump and we've checked our clearance on the B2 clutch. So now it's time to swing this assembly out of the way and get to building the K1 clutch.